All right, so we just went over the bicep cradle. Now we're going to go over a little bit different, another variation of that. So the first one we went over, Tony did an outside leg stand up. I was trying to lock my hands here. He got his hand on my hand and was getting ready to pull it to the other side of his head. But we locked on his bicep before he was able to do that, and we got him locked in here. Now, a lot of people are like, well, okay, what if he gets my hand to the other side? Probably could have shown this in the same clip as the last one, but we'll keep it separate because it is slightly different as considering what he's doing. So, like I mentioned before, if I'm trying to get a cradle and I'm looking for this, if Tony brings my arm over his head and I get that same lock, now I don't have anything. All right, that makes pretty good sense. Same thing would happen if I was doing a near side and I was here. If Tony brings my arm over his head and I have that same lock, I don't have anything. So the defensive guy, in general, anytime you feel an arm coming over your head, it's probably smart to try to bring it to the other side. There's a reason I'm bringing it over to the one side. So in general, you want to bring it to the opposite side. So Tony's not wrong in trying to grab my hand and pull it to the other side. But with this bicep cradle, the thing that is interesting about it is this top hand doesn't really matter. He can have it on either side. I just need to be able to lock in on his bicep. So he comes back up. I'm still going for this. He's doing the right thing defensively. Brings this up over his head. Brings it to the other side. Doesn't matter. I still have the same thing. Minus having his head a little bit here. He brings it over to this side. I can still do every single thing the same. From here, I can go back, which is the direction I would probably want to go. I just take him this way. Here, the thing is that he kind of lands in my lap a little bit more like a tilt, which is that's why I somewhat hesitate to put this in with the cradles, but it's off of a cradle setup, so I guess it makes sense to do so. But now I have his hips in what we'll call the pocket if you were doing a tilt here. And from here, if he tries to turn away from me and get off his back, I'm just going to elevate that foot. If he turns into me, I'm just pulling down on his bicep. Eventually, he's going to let go of my wrist because it really doesn't help him at all. From here, a little bit harder to pin somebody because I don't have as much control, but if I have his hips in the pocket here, it's going to be hard for him to get out as well. Eventually, if I don't get the pin, I'll let myself get my back points, and then he's probably going to turn that way, and I'll just let him belly out, and then we can go to work on top. So you might be able to pin somebody with this. It's definitely a little harder. The key is just to remember that you can still get this bicep cradle without, if he does bring the arm to the other side. So just again, notice the difference. So here I have his head trapped still, so this is more of a cradle. When he brings it over, now I have his leg, but I have his arm. So if he lets go, I'm still kind of holding his body in a cradle position, even though I don't actually have a physical cradle. And then from here, like I said, I would go backwards with this. If I try to roll here, there's a chance that he could kick his leg, just because you don't have the same kind of leverage that you normally would. So I would recommend just pulling back, coming here, and again, if I can get my bottom knee underneath, just put this into that tilt position where his shoulders are pretty close to being flat. And if he wants to hold on to this wrist, he can hold on to this all day. He's actually wasting one of his own hands here, where he could be using this to kind of try to get out. But right now, he really doesn't have much in this position. And again, the ref's counting back points right now. I can easily get a 2 count, hopefully get my 5 count, and then I'll let him up. If I don't get the pin, we'll just let him belly out, and then we can go to work on whatever our next move might be on top. So again, very similar to the one we just did with having the arm in the normal cradle position, but just know, a savvy guy on bottom is going to bring your hand to the opposite side. Know that you can still reach through, grab onto his bicep, tilt him back. Again, not necessarily a cradle finish, but it's coming off a cradle setup, so I felt like it was okay to include it in here. And yeah, those are our 2 variations of the bicep.